So we're continuing where we left off, continuing on the story that Moses is telling these young people here. The story of their history, to how they got to this point and into this place that they're in and where they're going to be going. Deuteronomy 2:1. Then we turned and took our journey into the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea, as the Lord directed me. And for many days we journeyed around Mount Seir. The Israelites at this point in time have screwed up massively in quick succession. First, they didn't go into the promised land because they were afraid. And they didn't want to go in there because the people there were giants and they were scary, so they didn't go into the promised land. And as a result of this rebellion, the Lord punished them by not letting them go into the promised land. So what did the Israelites do? They attempted to get into the promised land on their own. So they marched up there, they tried to go into the promised land, and they were beaten back by the locals. And that's where we are now. The Israelites are battered and bruised from their attempt to get into the promised land in the rebellion against the Lord, and now they are turning away from that area, moving towards the Red Sea. When it mentions Mount Seir and the journey around, that is the majority of the wilderness wandering. They couldn't really take the direct route. They really couldn't get there in a hurry. So they're just kind of wandering around, circumnavigating. Deuteronomy 2:2. And the Lord spoke to me, Moses, saying, 2:3. You have roamed around this mountain country long enough. Turn northward. The book of Deuteronomy has a different perspective than the book of Numbers when it came to the wilderness wandering. And this section that we're looking at here is very much condensed. They're just kind of wandering around this mountain, Mount Seir. Meanwhile, it's nearly been 40 years and it's time to go northward. It's time to make the journey into the promised land. And we're going to see some more details along the way, but it's just kind of funny how it's set up here. Deuteronomy 2:4. And command the Israelites, you are to pass through the territory of your kinsmen, the sons of Esau, who live in Seir, and they will be afraid of you. So watch yourselves carefully. 2:5. Do not provoke or stir them up, for I will not give you their land. No, not enough for the sole of your foot to tread on. For I have given Mount Seir to Esau for a possession. So we're receiving a little bit of background information here about this journey and traveling through the land of their relatives, the land of Esau. Esau, of course, was the twin brother of Jacob. And Jacob, after doing battle with the Lord, was renamed to Israel. So this relative is not that far off. And if we look at the promises that were made to Abraham when it came to the territory, they're much larger than what we're seeing promised to Israel. So some of this land may have gone to some of the other relatives. And if we look where Esau is, some of this land here that Esau's in is land that God promised to Abraham. So maybe there's something going on that way. But the land that God promised to Abraham, he gave it to his descendants, and a portion of the land went to Esau. And it is distinct and separate from the land that he is going to give to Israel. So the Israelites will be able to pass through, but they cannot take when they go through the land. They cannot take the land away from Esau or Esau's descendants. Deuteronomy 2:6. You shall buy food from them for money, that you may eat, and you shall also buy water from them for money, that you may drink. The Israelites are interacting with the descendants of Esau, and they're purchasing water and food from them. The Lord could provide these things. He has provided them in the past. But for whatever reason, maybe it's to benefit those descendants of Esau, he is having the Israelites purchase from them. So there would be a transfer of funds that way. And it would probably secure their route as well. By giving the payment, they're less likely to raise a fuss with the descendants of Esau for when they're traveling through their lands. Deuteronomy 2:7. For the Lord your God has blessed you in all the work of your hand. He knows you're walking through this great wilderness these 40 years. The Lord your God has been with you. You have lacked nothing. The wilderness wandering was quite the time. And the Lord God, he was not simply observing them. He was looking after them. He was caring for the Israelites. He provided manna so that they would be able to eat. And there was times where there was a shortage of water and he would provide. This went on for many years, and the Lord put up with their grumbling, and they were able to get to the end. Although I guess the old generation died out, so they didn't really make it to the end. But the spirit of the Israelite people continued on, and their children are here with Moses now. That's kind of cool. The Israelites may have made some money while they were out in the wilderness. They had many skilled craftsmen, so maybe they interacted with other people and they were able to amass some degree of wealth, and so that they would be able to pay for these things on the journey towards the promised land, that they could buy that food and water from the descendants of Esau. Deuteronomy 2:8. So we passed on from our breath, the sons of Esau, who dwelt in Seir, away from the Arabah wilderness, and from Elath, and from Ezion Gebar. We turned and went by the way of the wilderness of Moab. 2:9. And the Lord said to me, do not trouble or assault Moab, or contend with them in battle, for I will not give you any of their land for a possession, because I have given Ar to the sons of Lot for a possession. The Israelites were not able to take the direct path that they wanted to go. They could not pass into the land because they were not given permission to enter the land, and the Lord was going to protect the people so they wouldn't be able to conquer them either. So they had to go around the land of Moab to get to their destination. The Moabites and that land, descendants of Lot. Lot was a relative of Abraham, and they seem to have gotten along really well. He was a good friend of Abraham's. And Lot was around during the events of Sodom and Gomorrah. He was in the city. He was sitting at the gate. And the angels of the Lord went into the city, and they extracted him and his family outside of the area before the destruction could occur. His wife died in the destruction, and he had his 2 daughters, but no male heirs, and some things occurred that are quite wicked, and he was able to have some offspring. And the people that came from his loins were desperately wicked. The Moabites are pretty rotten people, but the Lord is protecting them because of Lot, presumably. But I don't know if this is strong enough grounds to make a very strong case, but it could be circumstantial. Deuteronomy 2:10. The Amim dwelt there in times past, a great and many and tall as the Anakim. 2:11. These also are known as Raphaim, of great stature, as are the Anakim, but the Moabites call them Emim. We have multiple names for the giants, the Raphaim. We see that the different cultures, the different groups, they have different names for the same generalized idea. Potentially angel-human hybrids, the likes of which we saw previously in the event that occurred with the flood. Although I think in this version of Bible study that we are doing, we didn't go too deep on that end of the interpretation. This is mentioned as a historical event in that some of these groups have already been displaced. Deuteronomy 2:12. The Horites also formerly lived in Seir, but the sons of Esau deposed them, and destroyed them from before them, and dwelt in their stead, as Israel did to the land of their possession, which the Lord gave to them. So the descendants of Esau were able to drive out some of these people from these lands. And that happened at a previous juncture in time. It's almost like a history lesson that is being given here of what happened previously. Maybe this was when they were down in Egypt, maybe some other time. It's hard to say. Deuteronomy 2:13. Now rise up and go over the brook of Zered. So we went over the brook of Zered. Anyway, back to the main story, that they have been commanded now to rise up and go over this brook. We don't really know exactly where this brook is today. We haven't found it out or figured it out yet, but that's what the command is here. Deuteronomy 2:14. And the time from our leaving Kadesh Barnea until we had come over the brook Zered was 38 years, until the whole generation of the men of war had perished from the camp, as the Lord had sworn to them. This is a very significant event, and it occurred after a considerable amount of time. What the Lord promised, or what the Lord swore to the Israelites, that none of that generation would enter into the promised land. That event has occurred now. All of that generation is now dead. They have passed away in the wilderness, and they're on the precipice of getting towards the promised land. And we see the Kadesh Barnea mentioned here, and we see this brook, so it's kind of part of the journey towards the promised land and a place of significance. Deuteronomy 2:15. Moreover, the hand of the Lord was against them, to exterminate them from the midst of the camp, until they were all gone. 2:16. So when all the men of war had died from among the people. 38 years is indeed a significant amount of time, but it could have been much longer. The Lord wasn't blessing the Israelites here with really long lives. You think about it, the youngest person would be 20 years old when the survey occurred, and if they're wandering for 40 years, they would only be 60 after 40 more years if they started at 20, which isn't particularly old. So the wilderness was probably very harsh, and the Lord wasn't blessing them with long life because he wanted to get them into the promised land at some point. So that's what we have going on here. If they all lived as long as Methuselah, they may have never made it to the land. So they were consumed, and we can move on with God's plan. Deuteronomy 2:17. The Lord spoke to me, Moses, saying. 2:18. You are this day to pass through Ar, the border of Moab. 2:19. But when you come near the territory of the sons of Ammon, do not trouble or assault them, or provoke or stir them up, for I will not give to you any of the land of the Ammonites for a possession, because I have given it to the sons of Lot for a possession. So the journey continues. They're making progress. And we encountered another group of people that the Lord is not going to allow the Israelites to capture, to take their land. Now it is the Ammonites. And they are also sons of Lot, the descendants of Lot. Lot had 2 daughters. And the one daughter we got the Moabites, and the other daughter we got the Ammonites. Presumably that's how that happened. And because of their position or relation to Lot, God is going to preserve them and not allow their land to be taken by the Israelites. Deuteronomy 2:20. That is also known as a land of Raphaim, of great stature. Raphaim dwelt there formerly, but the Ammonites call them Zenzamim. 2:21, a people great and many, and tall as the Anakim. But the Lord destroyed them before Ammon, and they dispossessed them, settled in their stead. So here we see the giants mentioned again, that they were in these lands, and the Lord destroyed them and had these other people, these Ammonites, take possession of the land. So they would be dwelling in it, and they would secure the land to prevent these giants from coming back and taking the land back. It's quite interesting. Deuteronomy 2:22, as he did with the sons of Esau who dwelt in Seir, he destroyed the Horites from before them, and they dispossessed them and settled in their stead, even to this day. So we have some more information on the history in this area. We have these Horites here, and the destruction, and that they were displaced, and a new group took the lands that they had, that they were dwelling in the area of Mount Seir. Deuteronomy 2:23, as for the Avim, who dwelt in the villages as far as Gaza, the Caphtorim, who came from Caphtor, destroyed them and dwelt in their stead. And we have another example of God removing people that he didn't like in this particular area and dispossessing them of the land and having a different group take possession of the land. Deuteronomy 2:24, rise up, take your journey, and pass over the valley of the Arnon. Behold, I have given into your hand Sihon, the Amorite king of Heshbon, and his land. Begin to possess it, and contend with him in battle. So we saw this battle play out in the book of Numbers, chapter 21. This is a time when the Israelites go to war and they conquer these different kings and take possession of their different territories. Deuteronomy 2:25, this day will I begin to put the dread and fear of you upon the people who are under the whole heavens, who shall hear the report of you, and shall tremble and be in anguish because of you. When the Israelites conquer some of these places, they do a total extermination. And because they did a total extermination, the nations around, when they heard the news, they were afraid of them, that they would be next on the chopping block. Deuteronomy 2:26, so I sent messengers from the wilderness of Kedemoth to Sihon, king of Heshbon, with words of peace, saying, 2:27, let me pass through your land. I will go only by the road, turning aside neither to the right nor to the left. 2:28, you shall sell me food to eat and sell me water to drink. Only let me walk through. So Israel reached out to this king in peace. They sent messengers for peace to request permission to pass through their land, to get to the destination that they wanted to get to. This was the convenient path. But their messengers were not received well, and this king came after them. We saw this event occur in Numbers 21. It's not going to end very well for this king. Deuteronomy 2:29, as the sons of Esau who dwelt in Seir, and the Moabites who dwelt in Ar, did for me, until I go over the Jordan into the land which the Lord our God gives us. A little bit earlier in this chapter, we saw an event similar to this where they asked for this permission, and it was granted. They were able to gain passage, and they were able to buy food and water and travel through the land. But not this time. Deuteronomy 2:30, but Sihon, king of Heshbon, would not let us pass by him. For the Lord your God hardened his spirit and made his heart obstinate, that he might give him into your hand as at this day. 2:31. And the Lord said to me, Moses, behold, I have begun to give Sihon and his land over to you. Begin to take possession, that you may succeed him and occupy his land. So this king, he was having nothing to do with peace. He wasn't going to let these people go through. He wasn't going to sell them food or water. He wanted to attack them, to destroy them, to push them back. But he was delivered into their hands instead by the Lord. Deuteronomy 2:32. Then Sihon came out against us, he and all his people, to fight at Jahaz. 2:33. And the Lord our God gave him over to us, and we defeated him and his sons and all his people. 2:34. At the same time we took all his cities and utterly destroyed every city, men, women, and children. We left none to remain. 2:35. Only the cattle we took as booty for ourselves, and the spoil of the cities which we had captured. So they came for war, and they were totally destroyed, total annihilation. Israel took some spoils of war, but in reality they were completely wiped out off the face of the map. Deuteronomy 2:36. From Aror, which is on the edge of the Arnon Valley, and from the city that is in the valley, as far as Geled, there was no city too high and strong for us. The Lord our God delivered all to us. 2:37. Only you did not go near the cities of the Ammonites, that is, to any bank of the river Jabbok, and the cities of the hill country, and wherever the Lord our God had forbidden. The Lord granted Israel great military victory in these battles. We're going to see some later on where they didn't lose anyone when they went to war, which is absolutely incredible. There was locations that they weren't allowed to conquer, people they weren't allowed to conquer. There's probably reasons for this. But for the most part, most of this area, it's free game. They can just go in there and they can take it. And the Lord is going to help them do that, to take possession of this land.